questions earlier, what was the main deliverable for me from a management perspective? The product cadence, the right product at the right time. I would say yes, we had the right product and we had it at the right time. Of course,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
And it's not in all the markets, at least the majority of the markets. Yep, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Excuse me. Okay, then, yeah, I was a little confused by this next point. Introduced and championed reliability engineering function for
Mm,
the business. What was that about?
Yeah, so again, the concept of reliability was not existing. So the business wanted, the engineering teams, everyone, the entire company wanted reliable products. Of course, you don't want your product to fail, but
Yeah.
reliability engineering was non-existent. So the concepts of high-speed accelerated life testing, highly accelerated stress screening, HALT, they call it, and there was no reliability expert. Skill set was not existent. So I went out and created this function called reliability engineering team, recruited somebody who knew this, had the skill set, and had the right concept in his head, and brought him in. And I implemented capital expenditure. We built a reliability engineering lab from complete ground up. It was non-existent, zero. There was nothing to. We spent consistently, almost like, when I was there, we spent in the first 3 years anywhere up to $4 million to build, the lab. And then we implemented on the manufacturing, line production. We implemented a lot of, high reliability engineering tests. We built equipment and processes around, reliability engineering. We implemented a lot of data analysis, tools, infrastructure to look at the product failure data from the field and feed it back into the design teams. So that's all that.
Okay. Okay, so just for my own clarification's sake, reliability engineering, it relates more to quality assurance than anything else. Would that be correct?
There's two parts to reliability engineering. One is how do you incorporate reliability into your product design? How do you ensure the components that you're choosing, the design that you made is ending up in a good quality product? So it's a design, it is not quality assurance. It is something that results in you achieving a high quality assurance.
Okay.
If you know what I mean. Yeah. So reliability is in the design space. There are a lot of things that you can do in the selection of designs, selection of components to ensure the product achieves a certain life expectancy in the field without failure. Okay, that is number one. Number two is quality assurance, you could say, is in the manufacturing you have to have certain processes in place to test equipment at regular intervals and the product and components at regular intervals to make sure that you have confidence the product is not going to fail in the field before a certain time. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I had one question and I forgot about it.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No. No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Okay, you know what? It'll come back to me eventually. Oh yeah, now I remember. Why did you feel like you had to introduce this? Like, was this forward thinking on your part? Like, let's let's prevent this from happening before it happens, or were problems already occurring?
Problems in the previous generation of products. There
Hmm.
was a high failure rate of
Hmm.
um, a previous generation product that was costing the company literally millions and millions of dollars. And
Hmm.
it was a bit of forward thinking, but it was also, um, you know, triggered by the past.
Wonderful. I mean, not wonderful, but mm,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's good that we.
um, can you share
That's
the failure rate and how much it was able to be brought down through this initiative?
yeah, definitely. So it is. It's a. I don't know. It's a bad thing for the business to be writing in my CV to say,
True.
a certain product had. So we got to be careful in how
Okay, you know what?
I represent. Um,
Hmm.
but
Let's
mhm.
let's just write lowered failure rate. That's it.
Yeah, if somebody
Let's not
was to say,
specify the
I'm
number.
open to discussing it. So a certain
Hmm.
part of the product had
Hmm.
high double-digit failure rate. And
Hmm.
then moving forward, I
Hmm.
set the target to the business to say S&P Sleep Style had to have less than 2% failure rate overall
Ah,
over the life of the product. And we successfully achieved that. And it's a
wonderful.
huge
I think
achievement. Yeah.
let's go with that part. Like, I'll just include that part that you were able to hit
Hmm.
this less than 2% failure rate during the product life. That's wonderful.
Hmm.
Um, okay, then moving on, what was this design for procurement type of cost focused development
Hmm.
processes? Like, what was that about?
Yeah. So the procurement function was functioning independent of the product design to a large extent. So before I took charge, um, procurement engineers, procurement teams would be away from the design teams, and it's only towards the end of the complete design, like you go to the team, and then sometimes even the engineers themselves, they will go out and say, "Oh, let me find the right component supply." There's like hundreds, there's 700, 800 components that go into a CPAP machine, for example,
Hmm. Hmm.
electronic, mechanical, various
All
components.
sorts.
So the ultimate control and management of this to
Hmm.
drive the right product cost was
Hmm.
was not there. So what I
Hmm.
did was created an onboard procurement function. So there is a procurement manager that sits within my team that reports directly to me, and the sole responsibility, the job is to work closely. As soon as an engineer has a design idea, it has to go through a procurement process to say, this component that you're selecting this chip, this resistor, this transformer, this bearing, this plastic. What is the cost of this? And how does it play into this overall cost goal that we have for the product? Does it meet the overall cost objective of the product? If not, they
Hmm.
work with the procurement manager to basically recalibrate the whole thing. Either your supplier changes, or your
Hmm.
design changes, or
Hmm.
your specification changes to make sure we bring the component cost to the
Down.
target. Yes.
So, similar question to the one before. What drove this introduction? Was this something this cost focused was lost? Was it not there?
Yeah, because we had to think creatively, right? So we had to come up with these things. We had a very aggressive cost target to reduce the cost
Hmm.
by 50%. So
Hmm.
to be able to do that, I had to have some proactive strategies in place. And this
Hmm.
was one of the ones that was very, very successfully implemented.
Wonderful.
Design
Love
for
it.
procurement. Design for procurement. No one heard of that in
Yeah.
Ocean Title before. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've worked with a lot of clients, but like nobody specifically calls it design for procurement. They just call it more generally speaking, like maintain the cost
Mm-hmm.
focus, but this makes it more unique. Like it's like building it into the company's foundations, as it were. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
make this a core part of us. So that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like you said, you were able to meet your cost targets. That's wonderful. Um, yeah, what was the PCBA manufacturing and such that was transferred? What was that about?
Yeah. So if you remember our earlier discussion as in that global manufacturing optimization
Hmm.
project, I was talking about the idea of contract manufacturing was already evolving, and that network optimization tool was helping us to process this decision making more effectively. So
Hmm.
anyway, the foundation of that project was laid in this example here, in here. So the cost of, because we had very aggressive costs, it
Hmm.
made me think that the cost of PCB assembly is a significant portion, and the
Hmm.
way it is currently manufactured, the cost base was incorrect. So with the procurement team that was part of my team now, we had to think strategically about it and say, let's look at maybe contract manufacturing this. Let us look at, rather than us making this internally, let's get someone else to make this that has a different cost base, different cost structure to it. The fundamental to that thinking was that a lot of these components, they're all coming from Asia, from China, Thailand, whatnot. And
Hmm.
if we shortened the supply chain to manufacture it at a higher volume facility close to where the components are coming from, the overall delivered cost will be lower. So with that in mind, we
Hmm.
outsourced the entire PCB assembly. It is our design, but it is manufactured by a third party, a contract manufacturing. We used to
Hmm.
manufacture it in-house, but this
Hmm.
product, for the cost reasons, I moved it out to a contract manufacturer in China.
Hmm. Was it easy to convince management, like, let's move this outhouse, like sometimes companies can be resistant to,
No,
like, no, let's
no,
let's keep it
it
in.
is it. No way, it was easy.
I can't imagine
Yeah,
it being.
no, it's not easy, and so it's a great company, and we have great people, and it is. I would probably say it was. I haven't worked anywhere else, so I have no idea. But hearing from a lot of other friends and various colleagues at different places, yeah, I think relatively it was easier, because we showed the value. We all had one single vision for the product. That is, we want to be, without compromising quality, we want to be aggressive with the cost of the product.
Hmm.
So in a
Okay.
way, once I showed the cost value of it, it was an easy convincing.
Okay, that
And
makes sense.
so the supplier had a lot of credentials to for us to sell to the management team. A
Okay,
lot of other
perfect.
customers they had.
Perfect. Okay. And okay, so over here as well, you've talked about reorganizing the technology development team so that there was more consistent product delivery. Um, how does this differ from what we've talked about before?
It is pretty much the same.
Okay, it's the same thing. Okay, then
Yeah,
we can skip.
it's like minor changes, like, yeah, within the technology teams. We kind of divided them into drive more product cadence, etc., and have how do I say a way of making sure they're not just working on one idea, but multiple ideas and multiple kind of options, but different
Hmm.
purposes. So it's kind of an internal change. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's more of elaborating on a given interview situation than writing it in a CV, probably.
I think like you were saying it and it was on the tip of my tongue. So it was like introducing parallel project management instead of serial, right?
Mm,
Like you're managing multiple priorities instead of just one thing at a time kind of thing. One project at a
correct.
time.
One project at a time. Yeah, it's not about project management as such. It is more about a strategic,
Hmm.
management. So yeah, I mean, you
Defining and
want to
managing
say,
Sorry, please go on.
yeah. So no, it is like, for example, we want to develop one motor for a sleep cell CPAP, and there's 10 different ideas. And I mentioned earlier there was a process to kind of score the ideas and, read out all the bottom ones, and then you kind of finally run with 4 or 5 different ideas. At some point, you want to fail fast. You want to identify a way of reading out, kind of work on the four, but really fail fast. So the least competitive idea drops out the fastest, and then you focus on the next three, and then it drops down to two, and then you finally end up with one that ticks all the
Hmm.
boxes. That method,
Okay.
that process, that strategy, execution, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, perfect. I